Hi everyone, I'm Heidi Hess. I'm one of the co-directors at Credo Action, and I am so glad to be here today with Washington Governor Jay Inslee for a conversation about combating climate change, resisting Trump, and key governors' races across the country. Governor Inslee has a long history as an advocate for our climate, and in the last few years, he's been a leader in fighting Trump's dangerous agenda. He's also the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, so he's helping to promote Democratic governors across the country and help them lead in the resistance to Trump. I'm really glad we have time to talk today. I feel like it's short, so I want to just jump into my first question. So Washington's response to the Muslim ban. You were the first to sue and the first to get a victory in the courts. So I'm just curious if you can talk about how you decided to lead the charge against the ban and what it was like for you and your AG and the state of Washington to be the face of the resistance.
Well, thanks for a chance to talk, and thanks for your team, and thanks for your business. What a creative operation you have, so congratulations. Well, listen, this was almost not, you ask how I decided. It was really, in a sense, not a decision. It was just an innate action straight from the heart that skipped the brain. It was so offensive to the basic American credo, if I can use that term.
You can.
Of the basic foundation of who the country is. That's how it happened to me. Everybody has a story, but I was actually getting on my bicycle to go for a ride. I get to do that once in a while. And my chief of staff called me and said, hey, they're stopping refugees and folks from Muslim countries down at SeaTac. They won't let them in from the airplanes. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, the president wants to do this Muslim ban. And that was a synapse. That was just, okay, we're going to fight this. I mean, it wasn't a discussion or policy direction. So I basically just got off my bike and drove down to SeaTac and tried to help the families get reunited. And it was a scene of chaos, of course, because that's emblematic of the Trump administration.
Yep. And
it was also very painful because I just remember the man who was going to get off the plane. He was literally like about 50 feet from giving his wife an embrace. Hadn't seen her for a while, and they stopped him and separated this couple and sent him back. And so that was a very strong feeling and response, as much as a thought process. But it did, I think vast numbers of Americans shared that, because it is kind of one of the most unifying things of the American experience.
Yep.
To understand that we are the first nation of choice and ambition and courage, rather than just place of accidental birth. And that is unique in the human experience. There really has never been, when you think about another nation in human history, that you've built a nation out of a vision statement and a family's ambition to improve their lot, rather than an accident of birth tied to a particular geography. And that is a fundamental secret of the country, and this strikes right at the heart of it. So I feel it very, very deeply, and I know others did as well. And I'm glad we beat him in court, and I'm glad we led the country, including your excellent Attorney General who I used to serve with, Javier, is doing a great job. And we've acted together, and we act together, we do better. And we've won many, many cases, and many, many families have done better. And I came from a meeting. I mean, this is an American value, but it is also a really, really wise economic policy. I mean, the whole tech economy is built on the secret of bringing talent, intellectual talent, to the fore, to build these new technologies. And we experience in Washington, it's one of the reasons why we're one of the best economies in the United States. And to shoot ourselves in the foot and to stop that pace of technological change would not be a wise economic policy either. So thank you for giving me credit that this was a thought rather than a reaction, but I believe it was the right one.
Yeah.
I still missed a bike ride, though.
I know. I remember I was at the zoo with my kids, and people are going to the airport. I'm like, all right, well, we'll go home and get on BART, and we'll go too. Because same, you don't think about that, you just go.
Well, the fortunate part of this is that, and this was one of the first instances, but the sort of history of the Trump administration is continued sequential incompetence. And it started with the Muslim ban. It was chaos across the United States in these airports. And it's clear that, they just can't run a two-car funeral. They really do not know how to govern. And as a result of that, we have been able to defeat them time after time after time in courts, because they have violated the law when they've tried to do things. We think it will be the same situation when they've tried to roll back these environmental laws and clean air laws and climate change laws, where they've done it the wrong way and have not followed the law in the process, and they just can't get it right. So this is one of the reasons we keep winning.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of a follow-up on that. You know, after you had your first victory in court, you talked about it could be a model for other states. And I think some of that, you know, you just mentioned is like the legal fights, but I'm curious if there's other ways that sort of the resistance that happened in Washington has played out as a model for other states to sort of push back on Trump outside of the courts.
I would say it's a model in a variety of ways. One, we do have the judicial system. That is a genius for American democracy, to have an independent judiciary, and that's why we've got to maintain an independent judiciary. That's why we've got to resist Donald Trump's effort to politicize the American judicial system and say that we only prosecute Democrats in America, not Republicans. And that's just one indicia why an independent judicial system is so important. It's a model in the sense that it was an early example that you can stand up against Donald Trump, be a winner, and have the backing of the American people. And it's like, just like, have courage. Do not have a second thought about standing out against Donald Trump. It was a model in that sense. It was a model in the sense that when you do this and you give people a pillar and a flag to salute, people will do it, and electorally will come vote. And that is one of the reasons Democrats are voting in by the millions across the United States. It's why we're going to win so many races this year, because when people see a little courage, when they see an adequate resistance, when they see a reason to have a fight, and people willing to do that, they'll come vote. And when they come vote, you're probably going to have a better chance of getting elected. So it was a model in three ways, but we're not done. Look, we got the dreamers right now that are still in this limbo situation. And I got to tell you, when I look in these kids' eyes, who are just the brightest-eyed people in the state of Washington right now, and their ambitions are in our med schools, they're in our business schools, and for them to continually to be used as a pawn by Trump to try to use his wall is scandalous. It's wrong. And we have to be resilient in winning this and not allow those people to be used as a bargaining chip. So what I'm saying is, this fight is just at the beginning. This is just halftime. Oh my gosh.
Halftime seems great. I was like, oh, maybe first quarter, but halftime, I'll take halftime. Since we're sort of on the subject of immigration, my colleague Nicole is going to ask a question about something that you've been opposing in Washington that I think is just something that is good to flag as an issue. So she's right there.
Hi, Governor. So in the spring, you spoke out against another racist anti-immigrant proposal by the Trump administration to expand the scope and reach of public charge rules. And it's something that's really not getting a whole lot of attention. So I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about it and then why you oppose it.
Well, just for background, the Trump administration is threatening to punish people for following the law, punish people for essentially doing what is allowed and legal and in fact intended by the Congress and the laws to provide some degree of security so that kids don't get hungry and people are not left on the street to not have health care and have to go to the ER room and have everybody have to bear the cost of that, but in fact to do it in a more cost-effective way. By basically saying that if you people got health care or educational benefits or things like that, that it would be you'd be subject potentially to deportation or denial of otherwise valid immigration rights. And fundamentally, that is an effort to punish people for doing things that are legal. And I'm generally not in favor of punishing people for doing legal things. And when we do some of these things, it helps the whole community, not just the individual recipient. Look, when people get Medicaid and can get treatment, a preventative treatment from a healthcare problem, and prevent a problem instead of having to go to the emergency room where it takes 7 times more money to treat them for the same thing, that helps all of us. It helps the San Francisco community. By the way, my daughter-in-law just had appendicitis, and you guys fixed her up in San Francisco, so thanks very much. The night before last, you're doing a good job. But the point is, these are investments that can save money for taxpayers to keep problems from developing. And when people use them, they're just doing what is legal. So this is yet another in the astounding list of cruel acts by Donald Trump. We have seen his cruelty to separate children who were used as pawns, and essentially, you know, torture is maybe too strong, but it certainly was child abuse to do what he did. because he intentionally tried to abuse these children in order to get what he wanted at the border. And he got caught, and because of the national outcry, we have pushed back, but he still has not complied with this. We still have hundreds of children who still are in detention who have not been reunited. And again, I talked about not running a two-car funeral. They had no idea how to reunite these children and are still not dedicated to doing that. So you bet. I think we're in the right position on that. I hope we succeed.
Thank you.
So turning to climate, something that you've been a leader on for a long time, since you were in state government in Washington and then in the House. My colleague Brandy, sitting next to Nicole, is going to ask you a question about pricing carbon.
Hi, Governor. I wanted to ask about the carbon fee measure that's on the ballot in November in Washington. Can you say a little bit about that, how it's similar or different to previous efforts to price carbon in the state, and how you see that fitting in your vision for fighting climate change across the country?
No, I can't say a little bit about climate change. It's an existential threat to my grandchildren's future, so I usually say more than a little about this, so stop me when you get tired of this. A couple things. So we have an initiative on the ballot, 1631. It will create a charge on polluters. It will have polluters pay into a fund to help Washingtonians get access to clean energy. It's a $15 a ton. It affects the largest polluters that pollute more than 1 million tons of carbon a year. It creates a fund of about $1 billion a year over time to help people get access to electric cars, solar panels, public transportation, clean energy sources for your business, upgrading your HVAC system, so that we can get people the energy sources they need to defeat climate change. It's a really good program. I support it wholeheartedly. It is different than other proposals. There was a previous initiative on the ballot that would have been purportedly a revenue neutral program that would have raised a charge on pollution and then decreased other taxes. So it didn't generate any funds for investment. And this is markedly, I believe, will be hugely much more successful because it actually gives taxpayers something for their money. It gives them a fund with which we can fight climate change and actually do things we need to do to defeat climate change. And so I'm very excited about it. It's something that I have pursued legislatively, and I fell a couple votes short in my legislature to be able to do. And it just makes sense for a couple reasons. First, the basic reason for it, this is a health issue. This is about asthma. This is about our children having epidemics of asthma because they're breathing particulate matter that's associated with carbon dioxide. It's about senior citizens with COPD that have respiratory distress. As you know, even the EPA's own evaluation concluded that Donald Trump's rolling back the clean air laws would cause the premature death of probably about 5,000 people as opposed to the current law. So this is a health issue for our communities, and it's something we all share because it's the air we breathe. That's number one. Number two, polluters ought to pay for this. Normal folks shouldn't have to. Polluters ought to pay. And they ought to pay for not only a fairness purpose, but a rational purpose. We have a very irrational system right now of massive subsidization of the fossil fuel industry. Now, people have talked about how the solar industry is subsidized. Compared to the oil and gas industry, that is almost nothing. Because the oil and gas industry has a subsidy. They are allowed to put their pollution into our atmosphere at zero cost in unlimited amounts. And that's just wrong. You can't go to the dump with your pickup full of your stuff from your lawn. You got to pay 50 or 60 bucks to dump your stuff. We are allowing these industries to dump their garbage into our atmosphere that we have to breathe at unlimited amounts. That is dangerous to our health. It is economically unwise. It's an externality, and those who study economics, you got that, brainwashed about this. I did it when I majored in econ at the UW. You should have an economy where the costs that you impose on society are incurred in your business plan. They are imposing a cost on society of the billions of dollars and not having to pay for it. So this kind of writes an economic failure of our system right now. It just is good economic sense to do this. The third reason is that we know we can do really smart things that will reduce carbon pollution, and we're doing it. We are electrifying our transportation system. Solar is becoming a predominant technology in new energy. Last year in the nation, internationally, most of the energy new generation came from renewable sources. And the reason is because the price is coming down so fast. Solar has come down 85% in the last decade. Wind has come down 50 or 60%. And those prices continue to decline dramatically. So we need to continue to push that cost curve down, simultaneously helping consumers get access to what they need for clean energy sources. And the initiative that is now on the table would do that. So this is a good policy. It's long overdue. It is not the only policy. We've got to green our public transportation fleet, so we have more electric buses. And the electric bus capital of the world is in Wenatchee, Washington. We have more electric buses per capita than any city in the country. We have to do more R&D to continue our research and development in new energy sources. We need to continue to look at some of our land use practices so that we get people a good way to live a little closer where they work so they don't have to have these huge, long commutes. We have to make sure our children understand the science of climate change, and that's an important issue as well. So there's many things we got to do, but this is maybe a single most important one. We have started down this road in some sense. I have put in an executive order that imposes the first cap, an absolute cap, binding limit, binding ceiling on the amount that industry can put in pollution in my state. Unfortunately, there's been one small mistake by a judge that has put that on ice for the moment, so we're going to another higher level of the court where we hope the justice will be restored in that regard. So I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of what your state's doing. Jerry Brown has been fantastic. Gavin Newsom is going to be fantastic as well, and I look forward to our continued alliance.
Thank you, thank you. So we don't have a ton of time left, and I want to talk about governor's races. Mm-hmm. So let's turn to that. You know, you're the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, and so you're helping to get more Democratic governors elected in November. I'm from the South, so there's some races down there that feel deeply inspiring to me, but I'm curious, you know, why is it important to get Democratic governors elected, and then are there some of the races that you're especially excited about?
Well, it's a lot of reasons this is important. Number one, we need to realize that it is really the only place in the immediate future we can make progress. We can actually move the ball up the field on greater social justice and better fights against climate change and better access to health care. This is the only place where we really make progress, or in the states. That's fundamental, and the most salient issue that we should pay attention to is Donald Trump cannot stop us governors for 85 to 90% of what we want to do. So he could not stop me from my climate change action, by and large. He couldn't stop me from passing the nation's first law that protects net neutrality. He couldn't stop me from passing a gender equity, pay equity bill that's one of the first in the nation. He can't stop us for greening our public transportation system. He couldn't stop me from passing a reproductive parity act. So for all his bombast and tweets, the fundamental aspect is our destiny is our own, state by state, and we can do all these things, and we're moving the needle big time.
Yep.
And while we're doing this, we are proving that when you do progressive policy issues, you get the best economy in the country. You grow your economy. These progressive politics grow your economy. They don't retard it. So we have blown up the Republican myth in this regard. Third issue, this is important on a national basis because this is important in the U.S. House of Representatives. Yeah. Because we know that the gerrymandering by the Republican Party has strangled democracy by the gerrymandering that prevents people from having any shot to really elect a meaningful member of the U.S. Congress. We have to stop this gerrymandering. The best way to stop the gerrymandering is to elect a Democratic governor. There are 8 states now where the Democratic governor will be able to influence the 2020 districting to make sure there's not gerrymandering, and we end this kind of cancer on democracy. And we've seen how important that is in Pennsylvania, where we elected a Democrat last time, and he put the kibosh on a Republican scheme to again gerrymander Pennsylvania, and as a result of restoring some balance, there could be 3 or 5 new Democrats coming from Pennsylvania,
Yep.
which would essentially be more reflective of the voters in Pennsylvania. So both on an issue of making progress, the issue of restoring the House of Representatives, and the other thing is when you vote for a Democrat governor, it feels so good. I'm just telling you. It's a wonderful thing. And I will tell you, we have opportunities this year, and I'm encouraging people across the country is whatever you do politically in your lifetime, whatever, think of all the doors you will knock on, or all the calls you will make, or all the checks you will write. Think of your whole lifetime that you're going to do, and about 50% of that should be this year, okay? And I'm serious about that, because this year is an opportunity for progress like we've never seen before. There are going to be more seats potentially in play that can be won to address progressive politics anytime in my lifetime. The opportunities are endless, and we got great candidates. We got the most diverse group of candidates, 11 women, 3 African American, 1 in Georgia, 1 in Florida, 1 in Maryland. We've got people who represent the spectrum, from the first transgender nominee in the Northeast to a gay business guy who's a great congressman and friend of mine in Colorado. This is a time this is a time to really make progress. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and if you want to have any closing remarks before you're done, this is your chance. This was all great.
Closing comments. Just join us this year. You are leaders. Everybody here is a leader, and that's my other message. You don't have to be in public office to be a leader. With the new technologies that you're advancing through your company and your individual, you're a leader right now. The one thing I might ask you to do, which I ask everyone to do, is when you leave here tonight and when you go home and turn on your whatever machine you're using, identify 10 to 20 people you know under the age of 40 and make sure those people vote. This could be the single most important thing you and I can do, and I'm very serious about that. If we did that, there's 400 potential voters who might help elect a progressive member of the U.S. Congress or mayor or somebody. That's really effective, and I ask you to consider doing that. And I'll tell you why, because the problems of America would be solved if everyone under the age of 40 voted. This is a generation smartest in American history. They get climate change. They understand you ought to be able to marry who you love. They understand that we shouldn't have restrictive policies on marijuana that are unduly restrictive, that don't help anybody. They understand the need to have health care. And so getting this generation to vote is just fundamental to restoring the vision statement we want for our country.
Those are great closing remarks.
Thank you. I made them up myself.
I mean, 400 voters from, our great room right here. I love that.
You could be the difference. Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for what you do.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.